Okay, hello. Good afternoon, everybody watching here. And welcome to History Chats this afternoon. We are getting started here in just a couple minutes. We got started a little bit late, but that's all right. We're still before 12:30. That's the important thing. Okay, cool. Audio seems to be working. That's always a plus. Cool. Well, I guess while you're here, let me tell you about some stuff that's coming up. This weekend, I didn't actually put a slide up here for this, but some of you may be familiar that we do a cemetery tour every year. This weekend, we are doing our cemetery tour on Sunday. So we're going to be at the Pine Grove Cemetery in Wausau. And, actually, I guess this will work. Here's a graphic. Yeah, so September 25th, that's this Sunday. So we'll have reenactors at the cemetery, and you can come get a ticket. It's one of our fundraisers for the year, and also it's a lot of fun. Get to walk through the cemetery and learn a little bit about Wausau's history. That's kind of the main thing this year, since we are celebrating the 150th anniversary of the city charter. A lot of the people that you'll be hearing from and about are going to be related to the city of Wausau. That'll be a lot of fun. I think, it starts at 11 o'clock, and then we're going to go for a few hours here. If past years are any indication, early is better because it's a popular event. So I want to make sure that you get one of our tickets there. We also, just while we're doing this, coming up, our next History Speaks lecture as part of our series is actually going to be, usually we do it sort of the end of the month, but for scheduling reasons, it worked out better to do it on the 8th. So on October 8th, so it's coming up not this weekend, I think next weekend, right? No, 2 weeks. 2 weeks from now. It's coming up quick though. But we're very happy that Zizong, I think is the pronunciation. He is a really interesting guy. He was born and came with his parents as part of the refugee from the Ben Vanai refugee camp in Thailand, and settled in Wisconsin and saw firsthand the development of the community and the difficulties and everything that the community went through, and is now doing his best to make life better for the people in the community that he lives here. So he's going to be sharing some personal stories and some stuff about his life and what he does. And that'll be a great program. So come out for that. That's going to be just in 2 weeks here on October 8th. All right. So I think that's all that we need to get through here. Why don't we turn it back over? Gary Gisselman is going to be speaking here.
Thank you, Ben. And as Ben said, supposedly, perhaps not the last of the white pine. We are talking mostly about the white pine sitting in Marathon Park, commemorating Wausau's pioneer lumber industry. If it's sort of hidden there by the youth building, the Eastgate Hall building in Marathon Park as you come in on Garfield Avenue. So take a look at it. Of course, as you travel throughout Marathon Park, you'll be seeing other white pines, sort of commemorating and reminding us of some of the great era, the great epic of white pine in northern Wisconsin. It was an incredible era in the history of Wisconsin, an incredible era in the history of Marathon County and Wausau. And I guess looking at this, perhaps one of the last white pine that is in Marathon Park, we remind ourselves of this great pinery, this great white pine forest that was in the northern parts of Wisconsin as well as into northern Michigan. So we remember this. We remember this legacy of this white pine. It was an incredible forest. It really dominated Wausau's economy, Marathon County's economy for a long time. And you can sort of see the division of Wisconsin by the forest a variety of other trees within that forest, but it still dominated the northern parts of Wisconsin to a great extent. Once you're coming south of that line, that green line, the vegetation changes and it becomes a different sort of environment for other types of industries. But for the northern part, for the green part, it was indeed a great industry lasting a long time. But we are familiar with the Wisconsin River District, that part of Marathon County up north, going south, dealing with the Wisconsin River. But of course, there were other districts, the Chippewa River District, the St. Croix River District, the Wolf River District. All these districts, mostly being fed by those appropriate rivers, had dealt with the transportation of logs, the transportation of lumber to the appropriate sawmills throughout Wisconsin. And for the Wisconsin River District, it was the district that includes Marathon County and points north. So here we have it. So this begins just a little bit of review of what this was like, bringing in immigrants, people from Europe, from all over points west, coming to the North Woods for work. In the North Woods and the lumber camps, we don't want to spend too much time on that this afternoon. That's a whole different story unto itself, and we've told that story. But it's a reminder of the great amount of people that started to come into central Wisconsin from points east and from Europe. And again, they came from Europe, the Germans, the Poles, they came from all over to work up in the pinery in northern Wisconsin. So it was quite an effort really to bring these people in. The population doubled and even tripled sometimes between a variety of different decades. And it was a great effort to bring people in. And this is what brought the economy of Wausau and Marathon County into great stead. These logs, this white pine, this floatable white pine, coming to places like Wausau for all those sawmills. And for instance, the numbers of, and I just want to repeat again, for instance, the Wisconsin River District. In 1842, that's just a few years after George Stevens came up the Wisconsin River to start Big Bull Falls, eventually Wausau, there was 8,500,000 feet of lumber by the sawmills. By 1847, it was 22.24 million. There are 24 mills, 19.5 million board feet of lumber. By 1854, it was 125 million. By 1872, it was 200 million board feet of lumber coming down the Wisconsin River. So that meant a lot of lumber feeding a lot of sawmills and a lot of economy, and one really doesn't get a sense. I mean, living today, we do not get a sense of what all this lumber meant for sawmills, for the city of Wausau, for all those sawmills that were employing people. We don't get a sense of what that meant for the economy and what that meant really for the life of people coming here to work in Wausau, Marathon County, and along the Wisconsin River. This meant a lot to the people here. This is another log drive coming down the Wisconsin River, coming through the center of the city of Wausau. Barker Stewart Island on your left. Other sawmills coming down on your right, most likely coming past Jacob Mortensen. Again, employing a lot of people. The legacy of that white pine, we just can't, I don't think we can comprehend today the importance of that in the history of Wausau and Marathon County. Because these sawmills, like the Benjamin Heinemann Mill here, an incredible factory of sawing all that lumber coming down the Wisconsin River. But it wasn't the economy and putting the people to work. I want to speak a little bit about the other cultural effects that this white pine had and this forest had on our lives. And one person in this was William Billy Allen, also known as Shanty Boy, poet of the North Woods. He worked in the North Woods, he worked in the lumber camps, and he was a poet. And one of his, and I feel this is one of his little works, Shanty Boy and the Big Eau Claire. Come all you jolly shanty boys, come listen to my song. It's one I've just invented, it won't detain you long. It's about a pretty maiden, a damsel young and fair, who dearly loved a shanty boy upon the Big Eau Claire. So a lot of culture was reflected in this point in Shanty Boy and William Billy Allen as reflective of his poetry and what it meant to live in the North Woods of northern Wisconsin at this time. But another cultural figure that we should talk about with regard to the North Woods was Paul Bunyan. His legacy still continues to us today, his stories, his folklore, but he was a creature of the Wisconsin North Woods. And he is one of the lingering legends, really, and one of the legends of that legacy of the Wisconsin North Woods, of the Wisconsin pinery. But then eventually, the pinery, the lumber, the forest went away. It became clear cut, and it all went away. So now what? Now what do we do? Well, that's another story that's for another time. But just so that eventually the white pine ran out, no more white pine to send down the Wisconsin River or to put on that railroad car to send to the Brooks and Ross Lumber Company in Wausau. So it's gone, but we still had some white pine, some old pine trees. And I guess that comes back to that picture of that tree, half tree sitting in Marathon Park today. Because eventually, into the 1930s, the pine trees were starting to disappear. And for instance, one pine tree, this pine tree that's remnants sitting in Marathon Park, it was about ready to be cut down. And in the Janesville Gazette, via the Eau Claire Leader Telegram, they cut down the old pine tree and they hauled it away to the mill to make a coffin of pine for that sweetheart of mine, that they cut down the old pine tree. So this article talks a little bit about the cutting down of that tree, that remnants in Marathon Park. And again, not many old pine trees left at this time in the 1930s, but this specific white pine was to come down December the 29th. So what I'm going to be doing here is talking a little bit about the effort and the deliberate attempt on the part of some folks to cut down this tree with the Yawkey Alexander Camp up in Dudley, up in Lincoln County, December 29th. Woodmans will begin felling the giant pine tree at 1:30 in the afternoon. The camp dinner will be served at noon. It's going to be a big event. Part of the huge log will then be brought to Wausau and placed on the courthouse square as a memento of past glories of Wisconsin lumbering. The project is being sponsored by the Wausau Kiwanis. So again, we're starting to get some news out to the public that this giant white pine is going to be felled, and now the people in this is the tree. This is up in the North Woods, up in Lincoln County, and the people are starting to gather. And this is a picture of some of the dignitaries that were coming up to watch some Wassa people, notably Judd Alexander, and a variety of other people coming up to make note of the cutting down of this tree, and they cut down the old pine tree. So this is men sawing down the tree, this big tree. This is perhaps a classic photo of men cutting down the tree. I think it was noted somewhere that it took more than 10 men to manning the saws to cut down this tree. And here it came, and then thus it came down, this glorious white pine in 1937. And then here we have a picture of some of the men standing on that tree trunk. And as the Daily Herald recorded, it was an end of an epoch. This may not have been the last of the white pine, but it was an old white pine. It was certainly a landmark. It was an effort to perhaps save it, but yet they felt that it really had to be cut down. These men, the article says, whose saws and axes had cut down millions of pine trees, held this old giant in affection. Perhaps they saw it as a symbol of their own vanished youth and the fact that the tree had come to the end of its day and could no longer be saved. Again, more accounts of this. The tree is 115 feet high, having lost 25 feet of its crown in a storm. It's about 16 feet in circumference, 5 feet in diameter. The Wassa souvenir, about 10 feet long, treated with preservatives, were placed under a special shelter, at first on the courthouse grounds, and then eventually moved to Marathon Park. We label this as the last. Well, it was at least, that tree was at least an old tree. There were other trees, other taller trees, other last pine trees are cut. So we're never quite sure when the last pine tree was cut. We know that the white pine tree, this 300-year-old white pine, was in Sawyer County cut down around the year 2000. So many other articles about old landmarks, old stately pines being cut down. So that's a little bit of the story of this pine tree. We see it now, parts of it, a good part of it in Marathon Park. But the legacy, the story of that white pine, the story of that white pine coming down, is a story unto itself. In 1937, people arguing about whether it should come down or not. Evidently, the story was that it should. It was losing. It would either fall down pretty soon or be cut down, and they decided to cut it down. But the legacy is, it still shows the main legacy is of the great white pine story, that large legacy of how white pine brought the economy of Wausau, Marathon County, North Central into fruition for many, many years through the 1840s, well into perhaps into the 1930s. And this white pine sitting in Marathon Park is a part of that story. It's also a part of that legacy. So with that, I turn it back to Ben.
Okay, yeah. There we go. Yeah, so there you have it. There's the last, or maybe not last, but a story of a last pine, white pine. Yeah. So if you're not aware, I don't think we said this at the top, but we are actually doing this as a theme, lasts, notable lasts. So this is the last white pine. Next week, we're going to be talking about the last trolley rides in Wausau, or streetcars, as they probably would have said it, but trolleys kind of ubiquitous there. This is a little image of that last trolley ride that happened in 1940. Why are there a bunch of high school girls dressed in royal attire with cameras and everything? Yeah, well, you have to come back next week and find out why, and the whole story of the trolleys and how they came to be and are no longer. Yeah. Let's see. Otherwise, yeah, thanks for watching. Maybe we'll see you at the cemetery tour this weekend if you're interested in coming out and learning about that. And if not, we'll have a good week, and we'll see you next time.